You're listening to If Only I Were Wiser podcast, where I, Reyna Wilson, your host, will bring together wisdom and raw life stories to provide encouragement and insight. So many times life becomes messy and overwhelming to sift through all the data, research, and influencer must-haves in order to really be the healthiest version of you. If you're looking to learn, grow, and listen to other people's stories in their own wellness journey, then keep listening, because there might just be some wisdom for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast. On today's episode, I have a sweet dear friend of mine, Katy Thomas. I first met Katy at a mutual friend's barbecue, but our friendship has blossomed from military spouse besties to now having the privilege to walk through several seasons of life together. Now, Katy and her family are doing all things camp living, which is so fun. And in this episode, we share about what it looked like for Katy to trust in God's provision, both big and small, and where He is in her walk in wellness. I'm so excited to share Katy's story with you, so let's dive in. Hi, Katy. Welcome to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast, which is so crazy to say out loud because you and I have been talking about this project, I think, since its conception or even before that.
Yeah, I remember you were starting your page and we were in your backyard doing a workout. Yeah, trying to figure out what to call it or figure out names. And now look where you are. I'm so proud of you.
Wild. Thanks. Which, if you guys didn't know, Katy is the brainchild behind what the Wisely Well name page, because Katy is just more creative and super cute. So she's my artsy friend that helps me with all the behind the scenes things. All that being said, I would love for you to just introduce yourself a little bit so our audience can get to know you. What does life look like for you right now and all of that craziness?
Well, my name is Katy, and life for me right now is every day has been such, you wake up and you're like, where am I for a minute? It's been for a couple months now, just because year has been just feeling like you're being sunk, and there were moments where we just felt sunk. So being here, it's pretty cool. And I guess no one knows where here is. We live at Highland Lakes Camp and Conference Center in Spicewood, Texas, and moved here from Indiana, which we moved there from Copper's Cove, which is just outside of Fort Hood. And we did the math. I think we moved 7 times in 5 years, but not to necessarily different places, but since we got married, because we've only been married for 5 years, we moved within the same state. We just moved to different houses. But I feel like it still counts. If I have to pack my own boxes, it counts.
Right.
One of the hugest perks, I know that's not a word, of the military, that they will move you. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay you broke that because I didn't have to do it.
Totally. For our listeners, Katy and I met through the military. She was down the street when my husband and I got to Fort Hood, which was just super nice to have her and her family and her son, as I was pregnant with Ledger and to do life with. And then you guys moved off post, which was super sad because our walking route had to change. So can you just start by sharing a little bit more about what this year of transition has looked like, especially as you guys have transitioned out of the Army?
Oh yeah. So Paul got out of the Army, and that was a headache on its own. I mean, he told me from literally before he finished his bullock that he was done. And I was like, you haven't even started. All my dreams of ever going to Germany just evaporated at that moment. But so we knew for a long time he was planning to get out. Though, we didn't plan for that transition as well as we should have. I think I went in super optimistically thinking, you can get a job. In the post-COVID climate, there were a lot of jobs available. But I don't know. He and I have just super different approaches to things, and he didn't apply to as many places locally as he could have. I mean, we had just bought that house. We lived in it for about 9 months, and he applied to like 2 jobs. And the one job he got uh, took us to Indiana. So after living in that house for 9 months, we packed up and moved again to an apartment in Evansville, Indiana, which it was beautiful. We moved right at the end of winter. It was kind of like living in the Shire during the summer. It was so green and lush, and it was so. And for the Texas people, you can go barefoot there because what fire ants? Like, it's so nice.
Nice.
But
good.
Yeah, so we transitioned, and the thing is, he was in the Army. He was making a really good salary. And even then, though, we were kind of living at the top of our income because we had a car payment and a loan payment for something else. And just, it was always at the top, but we still had plenty of room. But then he got this job, and it was going to be a little bit of a pay cut. Like when he reached that full salary, there was a training salary though, which they didn't tell us about initially. Or, I mean, they told us about it before he started, but like after we'd already started to sell the house kind of thing. And we were like, oh well, too late now. So anyway, it was like a quarter of what he was making in the Army. And maybe it was a little bit more than that, but like the taxes, Indiana taxes are different. There's a state income and a county income.
Right.
So our income was shredded, but our expenses were not. And it felt like going to Thanksgiving in jeans that are, 3 sizes too small. You're just really uncomfortable. And you didn't bring anything to change into. That's why you a dress or elastic pants to Thanksgiving. It was so bad. And it was just so stressful. Like all of the work that I had been doing for the past couple years because like if I back up, I started down this whole like health and wellness journey and was trying to, undo some of the things I had done.
So where would you say like you guys got to Indiana and it was just, like you said, really uncomfortable? Where do you feel like the Lord was leading you guys? Or what was the biggest thing you took out of that time?
So Paul and I are both firstborn kids, and you might relate to this too. You kind of become a problem solver, and you tend to, I can fix this. I can find a way out of it. I can do this on my own, And so we both do that. And I feel like the Lord was really like, took us to a place where we didn't have a choice but to lean on him, to trust in his provision. And, talking about God's provision often leads to this whole like, well, yeah, I'm not trying to be like prosperity gospel, like faith in God will give good things. It will and it won't, but he will take care of you even if it doesn't feel like he will. And there's an element of faith required, or faith strengthening, I guess, not required, but it is required, but faith strengthening in grief and in struggle. It's your faith is being tested and it's being refined and it's a beautiful thing, but it's hard. And I feel a little sore. I feel like I've had this really intense workout session, and now we're resting up a little bit before the next, because you never stop growing, you never stop learning, you never stop being tested. And especially if you struggle to learn that lesson, because like we can learn it now and be really cognizant of it, and then 5 years from now be really complacent and we have to go through another test, of our faith. And I don't know the why behind that, but at the same time, like God uses everything where you are for his glory. I didn't have a large support system, and this is hard. Like, we joined a church even, and it was not a great system. Like, we did not have community there. I try as I might. Like, I think it's so important wherever you go to get involved in a church, and I don't just mean go, because church is not responsible for realizing that you're there, and then it's not like going to a hotel where they're designed to cater to you. I mean, the church body is the place where you're supposed to participate at the very least, like put some effort into making yourself known.
Right.
Anyway, I volunteered. I worked there. I went to multiple like Bible study things, and I had no friends. I think some people still didn't even know my name by the end of it. And they were really concerned. They did not have any outreach stuff. I think their only class that they had was a divorce care class. They're in the middle of like a downtown and they don't have any like outreach stuff. It was really weird. And I tried to start one and I kept getting just put off. But for months, I started asking in like May, and by September, I still hadn't heard. And I'd like been trying to get with them for months. I was like, you guys just are not interested in this.
Right. Which I think is such an important point to make, that like, as much as, you and I share like the passion and conviction of pursuing community. We've talked about community on this podcast. We've talked about the importance of getting plugged in, but I do think there's a level of like human brokenness and expecting like the church to always be, I don't know, loving or, like fill the role the church should be, and like, that's not on you. But I think that's super encouraging for other people to hear of like, yay, like I did everything that you told me to do, right? Like I was a good Christian in walking into this new place, and I just didn't feel like I was fed, loved, or well received. But I think like you mentioned earlier in that, like through our suffering produces endurance. So that could have been another aspect that the Lord was using to, continue to test you and grow you in your faith. Doesn't mean it felt great. And, we're just speculating because we don't know his plans. But I think that's like a really just like key point to make, because I've had that conversation with people of like, I have been involved. I have done the things, and I just feel like it hasn't worked out yet, or at least not yet,
Yeah. And, I tried to say like, we've moved a lot. So it sometimes takes a year for people to really trust that you're going to stay, and trust that it's, for people who don't, and that's the thing, it was not a military community. Military community, I think, recognizes the fact that you have to move.
Right. All the time.
And it's going to hurt when they leave. It is. But it's so good. I mean, to hurt is to have loved. Like, so, I mean, it's okay, I feel like, to be a little hurt. Like, protecting ourselves from that is not living. But I think communities who aren't familiar with that just think there's no reason to move quick. Like, they're just not aware. I don't know. So we tried to like chalk it up to that. I found out later it was a common problem with that church. I ended up getting a job, which, you're like, oh, you were that financially tight and you didn't have a job. But I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I love it. I consider homemaking and being home with my son a job in my home. And
oh yeah,
we could not afford childcare. And with no, I think one of the ways that you typically find childcare is by talking to people and going to places you trust. Otherwise, you just have to hope the internet is telling the truth. Yelp reviews for daycare seems really sketchy in my opinion. Like, it doesn't seem like enough. But it's expensive. And so I finally was able to get a job where I could bring him with me, which was, again, God's provision. Like that was something I was asking for. I was like, if I need to help, I need a job, but I need to be able to take him with me. And God opened the door for that. And it was a great job. I loved it. So fun. It was fun to work outside the home for a little bit. I hadn't done that, and he's 3, so years. And I worked at a gym, and it was a little bit more than just a gym, but it was basically also at the same time just a gym. But one of the she was like a tennis instructor slash manager or something. I don't remember exactly what her role was, but she was also a pastor's wife, and they had gone to that church for a little bit, and she was like, I'm really not surprised that you're going through some of that. It's a problem with that church that they're more focused on their aesthetics.
Oh, wow.
Than some of their, like, not even aware that that's what they're doing. And I was like, oh, well, okay. Wish we'd known that, because we would have changed churches. But, oh well. We weren't staying there, but we didn't know that at the time. So, I also got really involved. There was this moms group on Facebook, and they wanted to start a play group. And she kept trying to have it like out in places, and that's so complicated. It was different times, different days. She was trying to accommodate as many people as possible. And I was like, listen, first accommodate a group, like a core group, and then other people will come. So it's like, pick a day, pick a time, pick a place, and make it consistent, and people will come. And then you have this core group of people who come every time, and then other people will join after that. And so I hosted it in my house a few times a week, or not a week, a few times in general, once a week. They were, the most community I found, and a lot of them didn't love Jesus. But it was a really neat way to kind of be open and honest about my faith, and just be, really transparent and not condemning. I mean, connecting me with people who were struggling with different things, because everyone there was like, I've had such a hard time making community. Every one of those moms was desperate for community and hadn't been able to find it. And so it was really cool to be a part of, finding some unity there. And you just see how God's hand works, even in those times when you're like, all you have is him in some ways. Like, you're just clinging to that.
Right. Can you share a little bit more about what it looked like for you guys to transition out of Indiana to where you guys are now, and what that's looked like for your own heart as you wanted to pursue things that you are passionate about? And I think just like the balance and all of that.
I was a makeup artist for years. I mean, I guess anyone can say that about themselves. You don't have to have a license.
But really, Katy is like my creative, bubbly, does all the things, art things friend. So her makeup is bomb, guys.
Thanks. I do love it. I love makeup. And I had looked into this years ago, toured schools and everything. I was going to get my esthetician's license. I was doing makeup for weddings. Which, by the way, gives me so much anxiety. That's such a stressful situation. I just did it for my cousin's wedding, and I had stress dreams for like a week and a half. Yes.
Really? I'm sure you did great. I know you were texting me about that, but I'm sure she looked beautiful.
After it was all done, I was really proud of it. Everyone looked amazing. I mean, they're beautiful women, and so it was not like it was hard, but it was also like, you get into this place where people who don't wear a lot of makeup, and you put bright red eyeshadow under their eyes to like brighten dark circles, and they go, what are you doing to my face? And I'm like, trust
me.
And like internally I'm like, okay, this better turn out good, or you're gonna like just
yeah.
I don't know what, but just fix it, trust the process. Like, my internal dialogue is arguing with itself. But I love skincare. I love all of that. I just find there's so much fascinating information. It's just always been something I've enjoyed. And So as we were transitioning, Paul and I, we had this discussion when they put off his promotion for the, I don't know, fourth time.
Yeah, millionth time while you guys were there.
And we're like, okay, we have to decide, do we trust that they're going to do what they said they're going to do? Do you want to? I mean, he hated the work. He hated it. I mean, washing trucks is not super glamorous. He told me one day he was standing there having a conversation with someone, and the guy goes, "I think you have some literal bullcrap on your face," because he washed out like cattle trucks, and he's a manager, or he's a manager. He was like,
Right. I can only imagine Paul's like face and just like demeanor
yes,
to
yes.
like have the composure as he's like livid.
And it just, so it wasn't like he was loving the job. I think as a manager, he wasn't supposed to have to wash as much as he was. But they also, one of the ways that company saved money was by like their managers are all maintenance workers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're constantly fixing pumps and all kinds of stuff. He learned a lot, but it wasn't a dream job by any means. And the reason we had decided to do it in the first place was because it was supposed to lead to an income that would allow us to enjoy life outside of work. Because like finding a job, finding a job you love is the dream, right? It's like, this American dream of I love what I do, and that's great. For all the people who found the job that they love, that's great. I think most people though aren't going to find a job that they, wake up and love to do every day.
Every day, right. It's still going to be a battle, And I think you said it. It's that expectation of this like glamorization of what it looks like to go to work and love what you do. And while I have loved what I've done in the past, I mean, I'm also human. I'm not going to love it every day,
Right. Right. And I think liking it okay is good. I think loving your life outside of your work is more important.
That's true.
And so if you have a job that you are not miserable in, that you like the people you work with, the work is, challenging, it may not be the most exciting thing you get to do. Find passion outside of that work.
Mm-hmm.
I think of Elf, make work your favorite. That's your new favorite. And I'm like, no, smiling is still my favorite.
Yeah.
No, but like, that was the goal, was like, it was supposed to pay for him to build a wood shop and get into carpentry, but he didn't have, we were not enjoying life outside of work. We weren't doing anything outside of his work because our schedules were so opposite. He worked nights, I worked super early in the morning, and we never saw each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, if this job is not going to pay for loving life outside of work, then why are we doing it? So we made a decision for him to get out with nothing else, like, except the trust in God's provision. We called my parents and we're like, listen, we're done. We have no support here in Indiana. We were just the three of us. There was, there's no help with Henry. There's nothing. It was exhausting. We hadn't gone on a date since my parents came to visit the 4th of July weekend.
And it was almost February when you guys were having those conversations, January, February of this year.
When we had the conversation that he was done, he had been sent to another state for the entire month of November to go work as a manager without being promoted as a manager.
Wow. Yeah.
And then he came back and they said, we'll reevaluate in January. And I was like, they're skipping December. And then in January, by the way, they said, we'll reevaluate at the end of February. And I was like,
no.
Good thing we're leaving.
Yeah. So you guys made the decision to walk out, and then you texted your parents and you were like, hey, we're coming to Texas.
And they were like, come on, we'll make it work. And
yeah, I mean, I love that text. I was super excited.
I was like, we're done. We're coming back. This is literally bullcrap. In making that decision, I knew that the transition was going to be really hard, and I was like, okay, if I have to have a job, but I want to do something I love. I have a degree in communication studies, which is so fun, and I loved it. It is useless without more education. There's there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I feel that.
Everyone who hired me or interviewed me outside of right after graduation, oh, so you can do like our social media. And I was like, I took one class on that and no. Wrong major. Did not study mass comm. But I was like, okay, well, we have some of Paul's GI Bill left. An esthetician's license is like a 6-month school, 6 or 9 months, something like that. So I researched, I talked to other estheticians. They're like, your school's not going to make or break you. It's what you learn outside of that. And so, I don't know. I did all this research. I interviewed some schools. I was really passionate about it. I started doing, like, putting things in a list on Amazon for things to start my business. I started, making steps towards building up my Instagram page to kind of reflect this new change. I started researching. I have this ridiculous list of like clean beauty products.
I love that though. Send it over. I'll take it.
I was just putting, yeah, I'll send it to you. It took me hours because I was like researching all the ingredients, and now I'm like, did I research this ingredient? Should I look that back up?
It's fine.
It's fine. I was researching topics to like write about regarding, I learned so much about the skin and sunscreen and just all these things. And then my mom Googled unusual jobs that pay well near me.
Stop. That's hilarious. Are you serious?
Yes. And she found this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's how she found this place. They were hiring cooks. And that's what Paul did. That's what he wanted to do.
He's always loved that.
He does. He loves it. He got into the Culinary Institute of America. He did not go because it's really hard to cook and provide for a family and spend time with your family because of the nature of that industry is really time consuming. Like, it just takes up and so he was like, this is not going to work for a family. So he expected not to have a job as a chef, in the cooking world. But this job, first of all, it's in Spicewood, Texas. And let me just say, when my mom sent me that, I was like, we can't afford to live in Spicewood. Are you out of your mind? Cannot even afford to live in a cardboard box in your driveway.
Yeah.
And she said, one of the requirements is that you live on the campus. And I was like, wait, what? They provide a place for you to live? So I sent it to Paul and he applied.
What was it like for you to like get these little tidbits of like things that you had been praying for?
I just cried because it was just my sister and we used to play this game when we lived in California. I don't know if you've ever been to the beach in California. The waves are insane. And we used to stand at the edge of where the really big waves would meet the shore, with our backs to the waves to see who could stand up the longest. And it was always like, it's coming, but it's always somehow a surprise when it knocks you down and it shocks you with the ice water that is the Pacific Ocean. It was kind of like that. Like, you trust in God and you know that he's provided for you over and over and over again. And still you're standing with your back to the wave that just totally takes you under. And it's been amazing. And that's what it felt like. It just felt consuming. And it is still, I wake up and walk through this house that we live in now because he got that job. And we walk through the camp, and I go to my job because they had one for me too.
Mm-hmm. Which was a whole other prayer we had literally been praying over for like months.
Right. And I get to bring Henry with me, and I don't have to find childcare. And it was God's answered prayer. And so I remember she had looked this up, and in doing this, as we prayed over it and saw it coming to fruition, my idea of becoming an esthetician, of pursuing that door quietly closed.
Yeah.
It wasn't a slam. It wasn't a hard shut. It was a, closing the door gently, quietly, and letting go of that. And that was a little hard because it's something I enjoy. It's something that I wanted to be able to do. And it's not going to work right now. To make that work would be forcing things that just doesn't need to. It would put my family in a weird position. I wouldn't see Henry or Paul. I wouldn't be involved here at the camp. I wouldn't be making community. Would God use that for his glory? He used the Israelites wandering the desert for 40 years for his glory, but that wasn't the life he had for them. Like, I can force a situation and it will still work out, or I can walk into this promised land, essentially, of his provision, and trusting in that, and taking this gift that he's given me and saying, okay, Lord, use me here instead. And it's your will be done. And I have loved the job they had here for me. And it's funny, we talked about how my first real job out of college was at a museum. And my job there was essentially managing their gift shop and their volunteers. I'm running a gift shop again. And it's something I've done. It's something I have a lot of experience in. I've done a lot of retail jobs. And they have been so encouraging. They've let me do all those things. And I'm like, thank you, Lord, because it was not expected. They just approached me after Paul was having his interview, and they're like, we need someone to do this. Would you be interested? And I have experience.
Yeah, which is so crazy because, like, it's no surprise to God. So he's sitting behind the scenes, like, orchestrating all this.
Right.
And it's no coincidence because it's your gifting, So it's like the Lord doesn't just answer our prayers in like the bottom benchmark. It's like, more than we could have asked or imagined. So it's like, not only did Paul need a job, but you guys needed a house. Cool, don't worry, we got your house. Like, no issue. And utilities and food and
right.
A job. Katy, you need a job? Done. Like,
yeah.
You need a job that provides childcare? Easy,
Yes.
I just like,
yes.
I think of the Lord sometimes. It's like humbling, because that's what I think I got from your analogy of the waves. Like, seeing the Lord's provision manifest is humbling. Yes. Because we don't think that like God's going to show up. And when he does, it's like overwhelming. So it's just been so cool from the outside to like see how the Lord has like been so kind in answering your prayers.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, there's like a level of grief of laying down, Lord, like, I would love to be an esthetician. I love these things. I'm passionate about these things. And yet he's also answering your prayer to fulfill you in your giftings with like your current job, So it's not like he just like completely craps on like your desires.
Yeah. And I know there's some people, there's a thought process out there, like, you wouldn't have these desires and passions if they weren't from the Lord, so you're meant to pursue them.
I think God gives us a lot of different desires, but also when we're following him, I feel like our desires better align with his ultimately.
I don't think having a desire to be an esthetician is a bad thing, but I don't think he's responsible for every passion we have, like everything, like we have some measure of free will, we don't need to get into that.
That's a whole other topic. Yep.
I think having something that you love to do is not a bad thing, but pursuing it outside of I'm trying to figure out how to say it.
Like, I think it would be a level of disobedience, like you said, if you felt like the Lord was closing this door and you went up to the door and were like yanking it open and banging on the door and being like, Lord, like, I really want this. Because I think sometimes, like, even in my own life, like, I see how God answers my prayers, but I'm so focused on this like other thing over here that I don't even have eyes to see what he is doing. And so I'm just like throwing a child fit and not even, I don't even think being open to like see how the Lord can bless me in other ways.
Right. Yeah. I feel like my desire becomes an idol in a lot. Like I'm pursuing my desire because it must, like it has to be right. Like I have this, I want this, it has to work.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to do retail my whole life. So it would be easy to be like, I don't know, this isn't my dream. And giving that dream to God, I have to acknowledge that my life is not about me.
You're good.
And I may not get every dream to come true on this side of heaven, but that doesn't mean my life is unfulfilling or
God isn't responding in other ways. It's, yeah.
right. But acknowledging that my life is about living, like, if you think about what is your purpose on earth, why do we exist at all? The conversation I've had with my dad, and to love God, to love him and know him, and to help others do the same. And so
Love God and love others.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm in a position now where I really get to do that well. Everything, because we work at a camp for, it's a Christian camp. And I run a gift shop in a Christian camp. And everything we do, all the money we make goes into pouring into kids and families. And, we had a mom's retreat here not that long ago. And men's retreats. It's all kinds of people out here. And we get to pour into them and we get to let them have some fun.
Yeah.
And get to know Jesus. It's really cool.
Which is just like so cool to see like how far you guys have come, and just like I'm just like in awe, and I've told you this, but like in awe of your obedience in the hard. And I know that it's like really sucky, and it's been really sucky, but your faith and like watching it from an outside perspective has been such an encouragement to my own faith, to be able to know like, dang, like this is what God looks like in real time, because this is how Katy is like walking it out. So you've just been like so encouraging, and it's just been so cool to see you do this with your family, with your son, with Paul, and like navigating all of that.
Thank you. I'm not figured it out perfect. I don't do it perfectly. So, but that's encouraging to hear that, because I know sometimes I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to see it sometimes, but from the outside, it's been really cool. So before we wrap up, I would love just to hear your heart in where like wellness has played in this conversation, because you and I have like talked about this for forever. And you were really one of the first friends that I think like introduced me to this like crunchy, healthy, like non-toxic living. So I would just love to hear like what the Lord has done in your heart with that, managing expectations, like us going back and forth with like supplements or like beauty stuff. So how has that kind of all been? I don't know, like how has the Lord revealed wellness in this season for you?
Yeah. So I grew up really, conventionally, Pop-Tarts and, so that, I was not by any means crunchy. And it wasn't until pregnancy and having Henry that I think back all the time, where was the first step to that? Like, what was my first foray? And I don't really even know, except that I was sick with bronchitis when I was pregnant. And the doctor prescribed me some medication. And she said, I have to let you know it comes with a small risk of miscarriage. And I said, okay, well, I'm not going to take that. And she was like, well, I was like, there's nothing else you can give me. She's like, no. I was like, okay. So I think that was kind of where I started down the rabbit hole because I needed something to help me get well. And then when he was born, I went down this whole I learned that all of the products I had been using on my skin and hair and body were basically poisoning me, and I threw them all away. By the way, hundreds of dollars of stuff. I was like I threw a lot of stuff away, and then was using coconut oil, and that was it. And listen, your glamour queen over here was like, buy perfume collection. And I mean, I bought the I'm a crunchy mom hat, every crunchy person has this hat. Everyone, it's like a uniform. And I mean,
right.
But I have one, and I'm like, I don't even know if I can wear this anymore because it kind of puts me in a certain level of crunchy that I'm just not.
That could be a whole other conversation.
Today I say I'm crunchy like rock candy.
Yeah. Before we continue any farther, how would you define crunchy, for you?
I feel like crunchy is a spectrum from, wanting to make conscientious decisions of ingredients in the product you use in your home, whether it's food or cleaning or body, to this whole removing all toxic things from your life. It's working to be 100% toxin free, which good luck.
Mm-hmm.
More power to you. But that was the path I was on. I was on this pendulum swing far into removing every single toxic thing from my life.
Skincare, whatever, right?
The problem is there is no consensus, unanimous, this is 100% toxic. Everyone says so. I saw something the other day that was lead's not so bad. And I was like, what? It prevents radiation. We should put it back in the walls. And I'm like, I can't anymore. Why? What? Okay, fine. I saw this other thing that was fluoride is a mining runoff product. I was like, there's too much information now. I need the internet to take a break. We're the funny dog videos, and that's it.
Right.
For 48 hours. We just all need a break. Do I filter fluoride out of my water? Yes. But just take a break. Walk away.
Yeah. Where do you feel because I feel like you and I have talked about there had to be a shift mentally, financially, emotionally, as you were going through this stage in your life of all this transition,
mm-hmm.
almost grieving this crunchy idol or personality. And I've even come to terms at times I can't maintain this facade. I was talking on Instagram the other day. I was like, hey,
mm-hmm.
I'm going dairy free, or being cognizant of my dairy intake because I've noticed some inflammation markers that I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And then I caught myself. I'm I'm not dairy free. I had a coffee at Chick-fil-A this morning. So, it's not all raw milk and I'm churning butter at my house. We also got Domino's yesterday. So what was that shift for you to kind of come to terms with, at least for me, I've recognized an idol at different points in my life.
So the shift happened naturally because of finances.
Okay.
Listen, I love raw milk. And that is something I have made a priority since I learned that it existed. I thought it was illegal. It's something I've always prioritized because I started doing that when Henry was about 1. Because until then I had done he had really bad acid reflux. I was told it was the dairy. We cut out the dairy. Let me tell you, that changed nothing. We did the almond milk. I did all the dairy free and it did not change anything. Coconut milk yogurt does not hit the same as Noosa. Let's just let's just put that out there. But I found a farm where I could get milk, and it was $25 for 2 gallons. So it was something I tried to prioritize. Our budget for groceries was like maybe $150. And on top of that, we eat a lot of eggs. And I'm prioritizing quality eggs and quality milk. It was just, that was not cutting it anymore. I could not keep getting milk from there. So I found a place that had some low temp pasteurized milk. And what I was doing was like buying that and giving that to Henry. And Paul and I were doing less quality, like just, conventional or like organic conventional, because that's what we could afford. I mean, prioritizing is a privilege.
Yep.
It was a privilege I had taken for granted. I no longer had the ability to prioritize food the way I had been. I mean, I was doing the best I could.
Yeah.
But I had to let some things go. I had to, because it was either I buy a really tiny amount of super high quality, or I can feed us for a week with conventionally raised beef. I really asked for the milk thing, because that felt, I don't know, that felt like the place where I could have the most nutrients for Henry. And you know what? That was another answered prayer, because one of the women at the church that I was going to, she was Henry's Sunday school teacher, and she was one of the people who did make an effort to know who I was. And we ran into her several times, once at the grocery store, and I was returning the glass milk jugs, because you get money back for returning them. And she said, I have a friend who is not trying to make money off of having dairy cows, but she sells the milk for like $5 a gallon.
Oh, wow. Dang.
Yeah. So I could get 2 gallons for $10.
But that's so cool. Like, even in the little things to see, like, I didn't know that about God cares about the little things, like he wants you to feed your family for a week.
Yes.
But like you said, like if that's something that's important to you, like, wow, I didn't know that. That's so awesome.
Yeah. So I was able to do that for a little bit, and it wasn't the whole time we were there. I don't remember. I don't know. So it was a few months of that. And it was so beautiful to be able to do that. And I could take him to the farm, and he could pet the cows and see the chickens and the pigs. It was really special.
So what encouragement would you give to moms that are like, can't maintain the crunch? That I feel like it's this identity sometimes, like I have, like on social media, I have to like maintain, like, yeah, I just got new skincare and it has to be clean, or my coffee. And I know that's just like a place in my own heart that the Lord is working, because it's an idol. But what encouragement would you give to women that are like, I don't know, feel the pressure or the need to like maintain this, or I think just need an encouragement in the discernment process of what do they need to prioritize right now?
So where I was struggling, for me, because I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing health and wellness. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to do the best for your family.
Yeah.
But it's not okay to be superior about it. Like, I'm doing so well, and this person over here, they feed their kid junk, and that's probably why their kid's sick all the time. I don't know. That's not really kind. It's not really building anyone up. It makes you feel better a little bit. But then,
yeah,
when you can't, or you're struggling, I mean, because I did not realize it was an idol. I was not acknowledging it was an idol in my life. But there was so much fear and anxiety and stress. I cried over buying conventionally raised beef, because it wasn't what I believe was best for my family. I cried in this, like, I was distraught over these things. I was wrecked, because I couldn't, I've gone without any skincare because I can't afford to get what I want, the high quality, whatever, that's super clean. I have a shampoo that I love that it's $24 and it lasts me about a month, and less I can't get that right now. Like I mean, even if we're in a better place right now, I still have a budget, and we're still trying to figure out after you move, the expenses are wonky. So I went to TJ Maxx and just bought some shampoo. And I'm just, you know what, it's going to be okay, because this is something Paul had to say to me when Henry was a baby, was that he's God's first. And he entrusted us with his earthly life. And we obviously want to do the best we can. I'm not saying, don't worry about traumatizing your kid, because whatever. Do your best. Do your best. Not only that, but trusting his health and well-being in his life is in God's hand should be enough. And
Yeah.
I could feed him all of the pasture-raised organic soy, corn, whatever free eggs for life, and he could choose to be a drug addict.
Yeah.
Like,
right. Yeah. And he could get sick or anything.
anything. And it's not about that. Like, when we start looking at it like that, and it is an idol. It became an idol. And my health became an idol. I was so fixated on that it became
right.
my focus on, like, I was not, and this was before we had to, for literally budget. Like, I literally did not have the money to make these mistakes. But before he got out of the Army, we had that room. I could just buy a supplement when I thought I wanted it, or I could ignore some of those boundaries that made Paul comfortable, because, and I did it in the name of, I'm trying to fix my health. I made that my own priority. I forced that to be my family's priority, because it was an idol in my life. My heart was, I mean, anything you pursue that's good, when you pursue it without being in step with the Spirit, can become an idol. And so now, as I have come to this place where I have, maybe some more flexibility, and reflecting on what I walked through in this past season, is realizing in my heart,
Yeah.
I was idolizing my health and wellness. I was idolizing making Henry, giving him a better, chance than I had. And, like, that's dumb. I was thriving. I was thriving on Pop-Tarts. Let's be honest. I was not just fine. I was excellent. I had so much energy. I was so healthy as a kid. I was more than just fine, even though I was eating red food dye, like things I avoid now. And maybe Henry will have an extra leg up, but I'm God's first, and he's got me, and he's got my wellness, and he's got my health. And praying for and asking for healing, it realistically might not come on this life. It might not. Doesn't mean you can't ask for it. It doesn't mean you don't keep asking for it. But sometimes I think he's asking for us to trust him and to have faith, even in the grief, and even in the suffering, even in the, the pain of living in this broken world, and trusting in him that despite the fact that I can't fix it on this side of heaven, yes, he healed people. He did, and he can, and he will. We will be healed, but it might not be on this side of heaven.
Definitely. Well, Katy, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I would love to close with our final question, because I'm curious how you're going to answer, just because, like, we've had this conversation so many times. So I would love to hear what your encouragement would be to our community. So if you could provide any wisdom to your younger self or community that is listening, what would you share?
I thought about this when I saw it. I was like, I don't know. I mean, depending on how young we go, I think my biggest, the constant thing that my older self needs to go back and tell I can see this in my future too, is lean on others. And you don't have to do everything alone. You don't have to bear it all. And that is, I think, something God has been really working on, is that lean on me. Trust that I'm here. Trust that I'm going to provide for you.
Mm.
Trust that the wave is going to knock you down. It's there. You know it's there. You saw it as you walked up to it and turned around. I mean, it's going to overwhelm you.
Yeah.
And let it. Just ease into it. And yeah, you may not know what that looks like, because it's not always getting everything you want, but it's everything you need. And even in the grief and in the hard, it's going to glorify him, and he'll meet you there.
That was beautiful. Thanks for sharing your story, Katy. And I love these chats. And I just love.
Thanks for having me. This was such an honor.
Yeah. Well, we loved having you. And I will, if I don't even know, are you on Instagram still?
I am, but like, I mean, I don't know.
In and out of the world.
Feeling cute, might delete later.
Okay. Well, we're so just happy to like celebrate where you are in life right now and to be praying, and just so excited to see where God will continue to grow you guys. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And I'm so proud of you. This is so fun.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for listening, friend. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you don't want to miss any wisdom or encouragement, be sure to subscribe to the show. And don't forget to rate and review. Your feedback means so much and helps our community grow. If you're looking for more wellness wisdom and free resources, head over to livingwiselywell.com or get connected with me on Instagram at wiselywell. And if you're looking for a break from the hurried health lifestyle, check out my Return to Rest resource for tangible ways to slow down and finally find rest.